Rob will be running the course. Rob is a PACFA certified somatic eco psychotherapist and an ecotherapist. And the course is just a beautiful course. I love listening to Rob talk. I'm at all of his talks. So I'm going to let him describe what happens in the course. And if you have any questions at all, please feel free to pop up your hand, or if you feel more comfortable in the chat, I can answer questions as we go along. If you have any questions at the end, we'll be here, make some time for that as well. Or even after the call, if you want to reach out to me in any way with any questions, or Rob, happy to answer anything you need. So without further ado, I'll pass it over to Rob.
Amazing. Thanks, Kate. Yeah, and welcome again, everyone. It's lovely to see you here. And yeah, so the flow of this evening, you okay to let people in, Kate? Yeah, cool. Yeah, so the flow of this evening will begin with an acknowledgement of country, and I'm going to talk then about the basic nuts and bolts of the course. So what is somatic ecotherapy? What are some of the central frameworks that I'm going to be teaching you to take out onto the land? And then we'll save time at the end for some questions. And as this percolates, if there's other questions emerge, then as Kate said, feel free to reach out to either of us. We're happy to field those. So yeah, I'm going to start with our acknowledgement. And yeah, as I do it, I'm just going to encourage you all to sense your feet on the ground, sense your feet on the earth, and maybe holding the people whose land you're on, the traditional custodians of the land you're on. And I'm here on the land of the Darug and Gundungurra people in the Blue Mountains west of Sydney in New South Wales. And yeah, I want to pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging, and to the way they've tended this land for more than 65,000 years. So I wanted to honor the legacy of deep listening that's woven into that lineage, the lineage of tending country and working and wandering and dreaming upon the land. And in a program such as this, we are also in the same river, this river of deep listening to self, deep listening to each other, and also deep listening to the land itself, herself. And I'd also like to extend my respects to any First Nations that are with us today, any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islanders who are joining us this evening. And so maybe we can flow from that place into an attunement, which is how I like to begin the classes together. And yeah, maybe just checking the body right now if you need anything to be more comfortable, whether it's a extra layer of clothing or a pillow, maybe just a postural adjustment. But just putting that question into the body, is there anything I need right now to be more comfy? And I'm going to grab a pillow. And then I'm going to invite you, when you're ready, just to join me in a simple practice called orienting, which is a beautiful way to land even before we go into the class, nuts and bolts. And so I'll just get you to take your head to one side so your chin is over one shoulder. And then really slowly, I'll just invite you to let your eyes travel the room to the other shoulder. And your head is just following. Just taking your time to take the space that you're in. The main thing here is the eyes are leading and the head follows. And if at any point the eyes want to pause, then the head pauses too. And as you're doing this, you might also sense the body. Noticing how it feels to come into connection with the space that's holding you right now. And this kind of attunement is an invitation also just to land, something we don't have to rush. If you've already gone one way, you might go the other and play with doing it a bit more slowly. Eyes leading, taking in the walls and the ceiling and the ground. And head is just following. And then when you're ready, you might close your eyes, and you don't have to. If you'd rather keep them open, that's fine too. You can have a gentle, soft gaze if you're preferring to keep your eyes open here. I'm just going to lead you in a short attunement. You might bring your awareness first to your sit bones in the chair. And just sensing the contact there. Maybe also sensing your feet on the ground, on the earth. And you might even reposition your feet, replacing them on the earth. Just gently making contact. Maybe pushing the soles of your feet into the ground. Maybe sensing into the support that's here right now. Perhaps the sense of being held. Held by the chair. Maybe held by gravity. Held by the earth. Maybe checking here if there's anything that feels like it might be in the way of really landing this evening in this circle with us. Maybe a thought or a pattern of thinking, physical sensation. And you might just say hello to that. If there's something here in the way of landing, just say hello without it needing to go away or be different. Maybe noticing how it feels to say that to it. And then you might bring awareness to your breath. Just noticing how it's moving through your body right now, without needing to change it. Maybe noticing the rise and fall of your chest and belly as you breathe. And just taking a moment to rest your awareness in the breath. And then I'll invite you to bring your awareness inside the body, into the spaciousness of the body, however that shows up for you. Into the sense of space that's here. Maybe space in and around thoughts and sensations and feelings. And just letting that all be there in the space. A space of awareness in the well of the body. Just gently acknowledging what's emerging in that space. Again, without needing it to be any other way. And then, when you're ready, I'm going to invite you to sense into your intention for coming along this evening, to listening to this talk if you're listening afterwards. What's your intention for coming this evening? Maybe there's a central question or a thread that you're following. So just taking a moment, putting that question into the body. What is it that brings me here? What's my intention? And then just sensing what comes in response. It might be an image, or words, or a feeling, or maybe a combination of those. It's just acknowledging whatever's come. Maybe sensing if there's a few words that you can put to it to describe it. If it's a feeling, putting a few words to that feeling. Maybe noticing where that feeling is in the body. If there's a question, checking if the question comes with a feeling. So sensing into the body here, trusting what the body is showing you. This sentient space of the body, which is interpenetrated by the sentience of the land. Sentience is porous. So whatever's emerging here, whatever intention or feeling, question or thread, maybe knowing that that's emerged from deeper ground also, perhaps emerged from the land herself, flowing through sentience into your awareness here. So maybe in acknowledging what's brought you here, there's also an acknowledgement of a deeper thread that comes from the land. Something of her ushering you to this place in a time such as this. So we're just acknowledging her too in this process. Acknowledging something of the land's dreaming, her longing and her love, which intermingles this intention that brings you here. And in a minute, I'm going to bring us gently back. But before we come back, maybe just checking to see if there's anything else that wants to be known. And to anything that feels incomplete here, you might say to it that you're willing to return to it again when it needs you. And thanking the body for its wisdom, the land for her holding, for her dreaming. And then bringing your awareness back to sit bones and feet on the earth, a sense of contact there. And becoming aware of the breath. And when you're ready, you might open your eyes and just reorient to the space, taking your eyes around the room. And your head is just following the eyes. Making a gradual re-entry. Perhaps having gathered or harvested the intention here for coming tonight. Bringing that forward with you into the rest of the evening, and maybe beyond that. And when you're ready, I'll invite you, if it's comfortable, to turn your cameras on. You can also keep them off if you prefer. Yeah, just taking your time to come back. And I want to honor the elephant in the room here. The fact that we're talking about ecotherapy in the polycrisis, in this age of catastrophe and environmental collapse and the silent extinction of species and pandemics of depression, anxiety, fight and flight and freeze. And so I also really want to honor the intentions that have brought you here this evening and the significance of these threads that you're following. And maybe naming that you're being gathered to work such as this in times such as these. So just sensing and holding your intention tonight. And even after this call, just holding it as you move forward into the days ahead. Sensing what is being asked of me. And I'd like to dedicate this evening to the greater healing. So what we're here in circle around is also a bit about ecotherapy, but it's also its own kind of ceremony. And there's an honoring of intentions in a threshold space, which is what we're here doing. So may we dedicate this gathering to the greater healing. And so you might be wondering why I'm here and what this thing called ecotherapy really is. And yeah, as Kate said, I can tell you some consensual reality descriptions of me. I'm a somatic ecotherapist and an ecotherapist. And I'm an Association of Nature and Forest Therapy guide. And I'm also a vision fast protector and a rites of passage guide. And a lot of my work is holding space on the land, connecting people to the more than human world and its intrinsic healing and holding capacity. I'm also a repression specialist in the lineage of Scott Killaby. I spent a long time in the world of focusing and in a relationship focusing, which is Eugene Genlin's work, which is really about coming into connection with the wisdom of the body and the felt sense in the body, and how the felt sense in the body knows the way, often way more intricately and elegantly than the mind can know. And I'll talk about different windows of knowing that this course opens over the 5 months. And maybe the most important reason I'm here is my own trauma that was the seed that was planted that led me into my own journey of healing and holding. And over the course of probably more than 15 years, there was a unraveling and an unfolding in the arms of nature, in the writings of Jung, working with plant medicine, and in time working with the inner teacher, the inner felt sense, the inner guide, in relationship with the land. And all of those disparate strands that really served me to step into a deeper wholeness are woven into the tapestry of this training. And that's what I'd like to talk to you about here. This training, in many ways, wanted to be called Coming Home, which is actually what the final nature retreat is called. There's an invitation to return home and to explore what home means, psychologically, somatically, soul-centrically, and in terms of our connection and sense of belonging to the earth. So hopefully some of that love will be communicated over the course of the next 35 minutes. I'm going to share my screen and I'll just talk you through the what and the why of the program. So here I imagine you have some sense or inkling already, and perhaps unsurprisingly it combines somatic work or a conscious inclusion and awareness of the body with ecotherapy, which is working with nature as the beloved, as the healer, as the therapist, the muse and mirror. And this training is both for those who are called to guide others, which is the Raven's pathway. If you're looking for certification, this training's for you. And it's also for those who are wanting to do this for personal development. So all of these tools you can apply to your own healing journey, your own journey of holding and growth and transformation. So whether it's professional or personal, there's a pathway here for you. And the whole field of ecotherapy really emerges from eco-psychology, which blossomed in the 1980s. Probably it was initiated by this seminal text, which was edited by Rozak. But eco-psychology basically holds its central tenet is that human well-being is inextricably linked to the well-being of the planet. And in this book, one of the forewords is written by James Hillman, and he really describes the way that psychology needed to expand its definition of what it means to heal, to include something greater than the intrapersonal consciousness, that actually we are inextricably linked through consciousness, through sentience to the earth herself. And so any healing journey needs to involve our connection to place, to the land, to the more than human world. And he comes up with this beautiful phrase, a psyche the size of the earth. So the human psyche is not limited to the skin bag. It extends way out into the forests and the meadows and the tundras. And as we learn to connect, or we remember our native connection to place, that itself is its own profound healing. And anyone who's read Richard Louve's Last Child in the Woods will have heard the term nature deficit disorder, which really underlines the potency of Hillman's words that when we are disconnected from nature, there is a radically, there's a powerful impact on our development, certainly as children and moving far on into adulthood. And arguably, much of the catastrophe we see in the world today is due to our own disconnection from ourselves. So we can really start to see that psychology and therapy is interpersonal between each other, but also with the land. So ecotherapy is the applied arm of ecopsychology. It takes those central tenets and provides tools and ceremonies and invitations that get us out onto the land to connect in a way that serves healing and wholeness and life. And so all of ecotherapy is concerned with fostering the natively healing connection to the land. And as Amos Clifford says at ANFT, he says that nature is the therapist and the guide just opens the doors. And so there's this beautiful sense of just tending space and being in partnership with the more than human world. And here we're healing, of course, ourselves, but by virtue of self-healing, we're also healing our communities. The healing of self ripples out into friends and families. And we're also in reciprocity healing the earth by turning inwards, listening to the wounded ones inside. And the next question then is, why somatic ecotherapy specifically? And for me, it's a really critical inclusion. And it remedies what I felt to be the absence of the body, actually, in many ecotherapies that I dove into, as though the body was a second consideration. And what this training really does is it puts it front and center again. So this is a whole of person ecotherapy, one that leverages the bounty of the mind and its treasures of thinking and concept and understanding, but also one that actively includes the body in a world that is arguably massively disembodied. For most of my life, I lived from the neck up. I was quarantined from all the stuff that was in my body, the trauma, and the places I didn't understand. And so when we connect to the body, an ecotherapy or somatic ecotherapy training also embraces the many inner parts that roam the nighttime avenues of the psyche and the soma. And it's those ones that are longing for us to turn with gentleness and compassion inwards, to be heard and held and tended, and maybe for the first time. And we can do that beautifully in partnership with the land, which also holds us and mirrors our greatest wounds as well as our greatest resources back to us. So we're in good company when we take all of ourselves, all of our inner parts out onto the land. And this training teaches different frameworks to work safely and compassionately with those inner parts. And typically when we include the body, because the body is essentially the essential vessel that carries us through life, the kind of healing that's accessible in a somatic journey is deeper. It's going to include and heal and transmute those frozen and split off places inside of us in a way that cognitive therapies alone cannot access. And perhaps the most surprising and revolutionary reason that we include the body is that it has its own way of knowing, way beyond, as I alluded to earlier, way beyond the mind can know with its static concepts and ideas. And anyone who's read Animals of the Four Windows of Knowing by Stephen Gallagher will be familiar with this. He talks about there being four windows of knowing, in contrast to the one window that we typically valorize, the one we lean into so predominantly in our world, the window of thinking and concept and logic. But he says, actually, there's three other windows that have massively atrophied in our world of mind over matter and KPIs and performance. And those other windows are sensing, using the five senses to know the world, but also through the body, the window of knowing called feeling. And in focusing, in Eugene Gendlin's Focusing, he writes about the bodily felt sense, which contains a vast treasury of wisdom, an intricacy and nuance of insight that the mind cannot comprehend. It's way beyond the mind. And the fourth window of knowing that's also atrophied is our access to deep imagery, the deep imagination that comes unbidden in ecotherapy. We can easily access it on our wanders on the land. So, in addition to giving you tools to connect to the land, this training is also about three-dimensionalizing how you know yourself and how you know the land. And so there's a really deep promise in that. We're cultivating all four windows of knowing, which includes the whole body, it's whole of all of person, and offers a deeper pathway of healing. And it's important, as Stephen Gallagher writes here, to three-dimensionalize how we know. He writes, our very lives and the life of humanity itself depend upon our ability to return to a place within ourselves where knowing is not distorted and where thinking is not confused with knowing. Where thinking is not confused with knowing. Where the four primary modes of knowing can return to a natural balance. And if this is not accomplished, and soon this very earth will not survive. So he explains some of what we're seeing in the catastrophes of our time in terms of how one-dimensional we are in how we know ourselves and the world. And when we don't know ourselves through those other windows of the body, this is the kind of thing that happens in our world. And so to achieve this, the training draws, these 5 months together, draw on many different paradigms, including forest bathing or Shinrin-yoku, the art of Japanese forest bathing. It draws on process work from Arnie Mindell, so tracking signals and symbols and the emerging process that's reflected back to us on the land. It draws deep on Jungian thinking, mythopoetics and archetypal psychology. And we draw with reverence on the work of Joanna Macy and John Seed, deep ecology. So there's a lot of different strands here that are woven into this training. So I'll talk now a bit about the core training framework, which is the 5 terrains. And this is what you'll be learning, again, either as a guide or as a person engaging in this in a personal way. So this is the shape of the 5 terrains. And it's really a treasure trove of different tools. Each of these different terrains contains different tools with different benefits aimed at different layers of our being, be it psychological layers or somatic layers or more soul-centric or spiritual layers of being. And at its heart, it was designed and created as a sense-making tool. What do all the different ecotherapies out there, what do they do, and why are they using these tools in this way? And this was, when Metavision asked me to design this program, this was the process that precipitated this model. So it's a map of the ecotherapy landscape that organizes the white noise of different ecotherapies into a sensible structure, into a cogent model that you can use as a linear sequence, as a guide, or to guide yourself on the land. So whether you're a raven or an echidna, there's a sequence here of tools that you can use to meet you where you are, essentially. And so in the trailhead, we're looking at tools that help us build ceremonial or sacred consciousness, that help us lay down the status quo and the humdrum of the industrial growth machine that really keeps us imprisoned in, self-beliefs and toxic concepts. And we step over a threshold in the trailhead into a kind of consciousness which supports relationship in a really deep embodied way with the more than human world. And this trailhead process is foundational to deeper work. And then in the meadow contains tools for nervous system regulation. So there's lots of sensory-based meditations, working in partnership with the land. And these are tools that encourage and support slowness and a sense of coming to ground, a sense of building space and presence in the body. And that meadow work, those meadow tools are a prerequisite for the forest work, which is the work of inner parts work, where we come into relationship with our inner orphaned ones or wounded ones, or the ones who weren't heard or listened to or tended in childhood. So you can see there's also an iterative effect here. We enter sacred consciousness in the trailhead, we regulate the nervous system and enter into a deeper, slower embodied state, from which place we can turn inwards and start to listen to the inner wounded ones and start to call them home. And when those ones are called home, the white noise, the clamoring of those inner parts is brought to rest and brought into some kind of spaciousness, which becomes foundational to the mountain work, which is where we explore themes of belonging, the extent to which I believe and feel, more importantly, the extent to which I believe or feel I am connected to the land and I'm not separate from the earth. So the mountain terrain offers tools of embodied conversation with the land. And sometimes when we're in that terrain, in the depths of it, it can feel like we're in some kind of prayer with the land, where the searching and the seeking falls away, and there's just a sense of a living relationship with tree, starlight, boulder, creek, or canyon. And through the body, we remember ourselves as not separate. We're healing the lie of separation. So those four terrains are the foundation, are the core of this training. And we touch really briefly into the final two terrains, sky and cave, which are terrains of more non-dual or transpersonal ecotherapy. So soul-centric work, which describes a being's ultimate place and purpose in the web of life, together with conversations with the sacred. And all of these terrains also, there's a sense of porosity. So as we enter the trailhead, we're also, through that sacred space, already entering into the regulation of meadow. Our inner parts in the forest are coming up. So there's a real beautiful sense of fluidity here in this training. So these five terrains can also be thought of as a developmental pathway for embodied healing. So no matter how you arrive at the stage of life you're in, or on any particular day in an ecotherapy practice, there are tools and terrains to meet you where you are. From, you might arrive with radical nervous system dysregulation. You're in a deeply anxious state after a board meeting, or in fight or flight, or some shutdown response. If that's the case, you would turn to tools of meadow, which really slowly bring a sense of ground back, a sense of presence and slowness and nervous system regulation. Or if you're working with that wounded place, there's a deep wound in you, a sacred wound, or a part that is really troubling you, keeping you awake at night, then you have tools in the forest to turn inwards and start to compassionately listen in a way that can really transmute those split off parts and call them back into the family of wholeness. So the linear sequencing is deliberate, and this is also a toolbox where you can jump around. You can pick and mix these tools according to need, your own personal need, as well as the need of those you're guiding, if you're called to do that. And in this day and age, so much of the work is, I think I've said this already, so much of the work is in the first, particularly two terrains. So many people, and you may recognize this in yourself, so many people turn up to programs, or will turn up to your programs in a way where their nervous system is dysregulated. So there's a lot of need at the front end to slow down, come to ground, regulate the nervous system. And then you have these other tools to deepen once that grounding is set in place. So yeah, this is a really all-of-person ecotherapy. And that all-of-person definition includes, importantly, the earth. The earth is not separate from who and what we are. And we know that physiologically, we are made of the minerals of the earth, but also in terms of the sentience of us, it interpenetrates the sentience of the earth. And so we're deliberately including the earth as a dimension of our wholeness here that's often left out. It's not just about psychological healing or coming into connection with the body. It's also about relationship with place and conversations through the body with place. So as we come to the tail end, I want to talk just about the logistics, and then there's some time for questions. The journey is one of 5 months. So it starts in October and flows through to the 1st of April, I believe. This is the next cohort. The ravens, there's 2 pathways. You'll be joining each other. Ravens co-mingling with echidnas. And ravens is again those called who want certification as a professional guide, somatic ecotherapy guide. And the echidnas pathways for those who are called to do this work for personal transformation and development. And so there's the dates, 29th of October to 1st of April. And the classes are on Wednesdays. The bulk of the classes anyway, on Wednesdays, 6 p.m. to 8:15. So it's 2 hours and 15 minutes. And for both echidnas and ravens, there's 12 core classes, each 2 hours and 15 minutes. Sorry about the typo. Those 12 core classes are spread over 5 months. And in addition, you get 3 remotely guided ecotherapy immersions. They're guided by me. So you get a sense for how the tools you're learning are sequenced together and applied in a standard ecotherapy immersion context. So you're learning how to do this for yourself or to guide others. And this program is really, unsurprisingly, given it's a somatic training, there's lots of emphasis on taking these practices out onto the land so that you can live and breathe them and that the learning becomes embodied. And just a few differences for each cohort. For the ravens, there's 4 extra classes on the art of guiding. You'll also lead over the 5 months, typically at the back end, 4 practice ecotherapy walks with friends and family. So you're putting the tools into practice. And then there's 4 Q&A sessions to debrief your walks with me and the entire Raven cohort. So that's a really beautiful, generative learning space where you're talking about what you learned from guiding, what the troubles were, what the challenges, and what your triumphs were as well. And at the end of it, you get certified as a guide. And for the echidnas, there's also, because this is all about personal unfoldment, there's 2 dedicated deep council sessions, both held on a Sunday, which deep council is the marrow of transformational work. So from your encounters on the land, you gather the stories and you bring them back into those deep council sessions and are heard and held and witnessed by and mirrored by me and witnessed by the others in the cohort. There'll also be 2 day-long walks where you have specific invitations to deepen your journey with the tools. Lots of specific journaling prompts. There's a sequence journaling journey that you'll be following. And it's all, rather than certification, it's all tools for your own personal development. We also have, in the 5 months, scheduled weeks of fallow or weeks for integration. There's no classes, and those weeks are for catch up or rest or practicing these tools on the land. And then right at the end, there's an optional 4-day nature retreat, which is off-grid. It's camping, car camping or tent camping. Over those 4 days, I'm really guiding you in a deep 4-day wilderness immersion, diving into all 5 of the terrains, the first 4 in particular. And we'll be holding council together around the fire. There's dream work, lots of nature-based ceremony, lots of the meadow practices of nervous system regulation and slowing down. There's lots of forest work, so invitations on the land to work with inner parts and inner archetypes of wholeness, and also guided into sacred conversation with place, with beings on the land through the body. So who is this for? Essentially anyone called to depth work. So if you're looking for personal transformational tools or tools for wholeness and healing and connection, then there's something really beautiful here for you. And of course, also, if you're looking for the Ravens pathway, you might be a therapist or a coach or an educator or a professional human development guide. But really, it's also a standalone modality. You don't have to be in the existing therapeutic space. You can take your certification as a somatic ecotherapy guide and offer these programs to people, be it corporate executives or friends or family or schools, whatever it is that you're called to do in this time. And there's some examples here. You can do one-on-one ecotherapy sessions with people or small group retreats. You can lead friends and family. Sometimes this is, wanting to work with our kids or elderly parents. You can do well-being retreats or corporate well-being days for burnt out executives. You can also create seasonal offerings around time of year that connect people into the different seasons of being. And one of the beautiful frameworks we use in this training is from the School of Lost Waters, the Four Shields framework, which is it goes way back. It's an ancient human map of the psyche, and Bill Plotkin used or built his own framework in Wild Mind on this framework, which goes back to Mayan times. So it's a very old framework. So there's a lot you can do with the training. And the final thing I wanted to say before questions is that there's a free 2-hour ecotherapy immersion this Sunday morning, which I'll be guiding. And so that's 9 till 11 a.m. in New South Wales time. And all you need is Zoom installed on your mobile phone. You need a place on the land with some kind of cell reception, headphones if you want it, a plastic bag to sit on the ground if it's wet. And that's all you need. And I'm going to guide you on the land where you are from the land I'm on over 2 hours in some of these tools, just to give you a taster for the bounty of ecotherapy as a whole and some of the early tools in the early terrains. So this will be a forest bathing session, which really deals with nervous system regulation through sensory connection to the more than human beings on the land. So you're absolutely welcome to join us on Sunday, this coming Sunday, from 9 till 11. And Kate, if you don't have the details or the Zoom link, feel free to reach out to Kate. She can distribute that. And other than that, there's a warm invitation to join us in October. And if the timings don't work this October, there's another training due to start mid next year. But the first one is in October. So if you feel the call and you felt something alive in that intention this evening, then follow the call, follow the thread, reach out to me or Kate with any questions, and I'm going to stop there. So pause